Okay, I think that we are ready to start. Some people might join us in a few minutes as well, but without much ado, here is Iskra to answer all our questions. Who is going to start? I guess the best way would be to have Iskra, maybe Iskra, you can share something about your art and your process or anything that you think you could do. You're welcome to do anything you wish.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hi, everybody. First of all, apologies. I'm outdoors and I try to find a silent place. But here in Spain, it's quite difficult to find a silent place. So if you cannot hear me well, just let me know, please, and I'll try to find another place. So my name is Iskra Velitchkova. I am a computational artist. I mean, focusing mostly on generative art, but I'm interested in any kind of interactions between humans and machines. I started my career in data visualization, which I think it's sometimes very present in my work. And at some point, I just quit that activity because I realized I was more interested in the algorithms more than in the data itself. And I felt more free, just like researching more about this kind of new relationship we are establishing with the machines through art and not working in different companies or scientific teams where I used to work before. And yes, so my work, I don't know how to define it. I just try to explore always new things. I think it's quite uh, freestyle. I don't consider myself a formal coder, so I just learn always by doing, and that I think it's something that my work shows, like some how sometimes some organic uh, feelings, and yes, I kind of like very minimal things, subtle things, and going more into the story behind the piece, more than the technical skill of something that I can create at some point. And yes, so this is how I would define it.
Fabulous. Who wishes to start the questions? Let me start with one that I've always wanted to ask you. Um, when did you start with digital art, and how did you get attracted to this specific art expression specifically?
Yes, well, as I mentioned, I studied economics, and but I was also always so interested in a more creative activity, let's say. And I studied economics because I really wanted to understand, the world around and why things are like they are. And I just assumed at 18 years old that economics would bring me that, but it was not the case. So I was lucky enough that a professor in the university found this kind of willing in myself of something more creative, and he introduced me to data visualization because it was like a very natural way to express myself through my knowledge about, economics is about expressing information through graphics and so on. So I learned from him how to code. I didn't know. And then I just mixed this kind of natural because I never studied design. So I tried to combine my own perception of things and mixing it with code and data and so on. So we created a studio by ourselves. And then I moved to work in a big company here in Spain. So I developed that activity for more than 7 years, something like that. And then, working with, I was part of a very talented team of scientists who I learned a lot from. We were building algorithms. It was a bank, so we were building a lot of algorithms to recommend things, to explore our data. And I realized, that there was something super interesting in how we are shaping our society to a very few algorithms. You could we connect now ourselves in a very different way. We are closer than ever. We know a lot from each other, from social media and so on. So I think the world is shaping so interestingly now. And that was an exploration that I really wanted to go through in a more deep way, let's say. And I thought art was the tool that I needed to explore more. So yeah, I just quit the job and I spent 1 year on gathering all the things that I learned from the previous years and recovering my knowledge from processing and P5 and all the libraries that we can use to make this kind of art. And I just started exploring. I bought a plotter because I wanted to play with ceramics and I wanted to draw. Actually, it's an interesting story because, as I mentioned before, I was born in Bulgaria, but I've been living in Spain for my whole life, and there was always a kind of a question in myself where I'm from. Something that it's not so present in my daily life, but it's very deep in myself. So I decided that I could find this kind of place through machine learning. It's a long story, but I started my project with this question where I am in this kind of distance between both cultures. And I wanted to express that through ceramics because in Bulgaria there is a huge tradition of geometric shapes on ceramics, actually. So I wanted to do that, but in a more contemporary way. So I bought this plotter to make my own interpretations of the traditional Bulgarian design and then put it on ceramics. But then, the NFTs came and I just started to show my work, my experiments, my explorations in this direction. So I just found I didn't have more time to deal with everything. And I just stopped this kind of big project and I pushed my work on this experimental stage, let's say. And here I am. I'm trying to find my way on giving a chance to more abstract things. And at some point, I think I will go back to this first idea of going through this big idea for me. But yeah, this is like the journey, how I ended up here.
Lovely. I'm really happy that you took the steps to this journey because your art is amazing. How do you come up with your ideas? Is it an like a experimentation of how you start working and then you like something and you go with it, or how does it work in your mind?
Well, it depends. Sometimes, for example, these the little birds that there was my most special pieces. That was an interesting process. It was I was reading this book, Nature of Code, which is like the Bible for every one of us. And you have a lot of algorithms based on nature processes, natural processes, and I would start playing with trees, stochastic trees, and so on. And I kind of started destroying that algorithms and to see what can emerge from there. And it came this kind of bird. Well, it's not the final bird, but something that was elusive of a bird. And then I moved very deep into this idea of how can something so natural emerge from something that I wasn't designing it from the beginning. So that's something very interesting for me. I usually use this kind of method of I begin with something and I start destroying a lot. And then at some point I see something there and it becomes like a loop. I see something and then I start polishing this first illusion of something. And then I foster some kind of more concrete result. That's one of the processes. And the other one is I usually take a book or a movie or a song or something that I can find a simple idea from something that I read. And then I try to create a story around. And it can be like a one of one or a collection that can express this idea. So it depends. It comes from a lot of sources.
How did you feel at Proof of People? Oh, I see Jules has a question. Just so you know, some of our residents sometimes are not able to speak, so they are going to drop their questions in the chat. I can see that you're
Ah,
seeing the
okay,
chat,
okay.
and let's see what questions are going to pour in.
I see one. How is the community in Spain? Um, well, in terms of generative art, there is not a huge community in Spain, or at least I couldn't find it. Um, but basically, I work a lot by myself. I work at home. My partner is also a generative artist, so I think we are kind of very close in our workplace. So we work by ourselves. We try to connect with people here. There is one guy, Ismaelio. He's also in Spain, in Madrid, and we kind of meet sometimes. But there is not a huge community here. Usually, when we want to meet people, actually we go we go to London. In London, we found like a super great community in Paris, in Berlin, New York. But here in Madrid, I don't know. I think we have a very, very great community. When I was working in data visualization, we had a strong place here for experimentation. But for me, it's like I feel here in Spain, at least Madrid or Spain, I don't know, there is kind of a resistance for the NFT space and, everything around crypto. And I don't feel very comfortable with this because I wanted to explain to everyone what is this, but then I feel a lot of people is against that. So I just I don't know, maybe it's me, but I couldn't find a large community here. So this is about the community. Wow, Victor, why didn't I come to Valencia? I wanted to go, but it was impossible for familiar things. I had to stay here. It was yeah, it was a super great opportunity to meet a lot of people here in Spain. I know you ate a lot of paella and you went to the sea and everything, and I think it was a super great opportunity to meet all of you. But sometimes real life goes beyond. So the next question, I will follow the questions. If there is something that you want to say, just say it. Could you talk more about my approach to collaborations? Which one works? And yeah, well, I don't have any concrete approach to collaborations. It was for me an incredible thing that Zach told me about doing this kind of collaboration for FX Cash. I've been following him for a lot of years. He's like a huge inspiration for everyone who is in data visualization. So he was like a master for me, a light. So when we approach the collaboration for us was a very interesting because it was not just a collaboration for me. FX Cash, when they opened the door to collaborate, it was like a celebration for us. It was they achieved a lot of things, so they wanted to create something like to celebrate that. So we found our styles were quite similar, but everyone had something very distinctive. So we wanted to experiment this kind of yeah, it was an experiment. How can we interpret the art of the other one? And it took like several months. We created, I think we released 6 different systems. In the beginning was like we opened 20 different systems, and it was like a mess. How could we put something under the same umbrella? And at the end, we found this kind of horizontal message beyond all the systems, and yeah, so we pushed in that direction. I think at the end, the result was more than expressing all the words. This kind of horizon, for me, all the words expressed this kind of light. That is something that is very distinctive from Zach, and it was very interesting because we got there through a very different process. He uses a very different process to do the works. And then the challenge was, how can we unite, both styles with a very different approach? So for me, it was a very, very special collaboration. Do you start with an intention when you're creating? What was your approach when you created Storm or Drop? Well, as I mentioned before, it depends a lot. Storm and Drop, actually, they are both part of something that I'm working now. I'm working on a book. It's not a surprise, but it's something that it's gonna be released soon, and it's a book, and it's a very I know how to express that, philosophical book. It's about ourselves. It's about how we perceive ourselves, regarding all the things that we think but we never do, and how can we face this kind of hypothetical person who we were if we act as we think. It's kind of complex to complicated to explain it, but that book happened in a strange world. So that's part of this experimentation of how to imagine this place, this planet or something. So that was the story behind these pieces, and that's why the collection is Symptoms of Life, because it's this kind of where things emerge from, and how can be this kind of world around you where you are not exactly the one that you show to the rest of the people in Earth or something like that. Waiting for any questions. Well, thank you. If you feel that story there, I'm kind of lost now in this process, because I developed several algorithms so far. I'm not sure which is the right direction, but it's so fun to explore these new things. And this system of drop, for example, it's, for me, it's a very powerful one. It's based on basically 3D shapes rotated in a very crazy way, putting like a lot of iterations, and then using a very thin lines, something that I used to work with. And I don't know how it will go, because to take a one-of-one, it's easy because I work with a high resolution computer and I see the lights. But then when you work with a long form project, you rely on the computer of everyone, and this kind of very thin lines doesn't usually work so well with many computers. So that's one of the challenges that I have now, because if I put a stronger lines in the project, the result would be more consistent in many computers. But I want to achieve this particular result that I want. So now this is the challenge. Yeah. How do you work with color? Uh, well, I am very. I always follow my intuition with color. I think because I use a lot of overlapping transparencies, as I mentioned, very thin lines, and you can have a palette, which is a palette that you start with a project, but then when you start playing and adding many shapes, many lines, you start iterating everything over and over, the palette just disappears, and you get some very different colors at the end. And that's something that I really like. I don't have any toolkit of palettes or something. I just use them, as I see the result, I just change and change until I get something that works for me. Usually with this process, you have this kind of feeling of light sometimes. That's something that was very interesting collaborating with Zach, he uses shaders, and that brings this kind of super special feeling that you can find on his pieces. But then I don't use shaders, I just use sometimes WebGL. And then when you work with that and you play with these very, very thin strokes, at the end, when you iterate through a lot of these kind of strokes and you play with contrast between colors, you create this illusion of light. And that's something very interesting for me. How do you see the actual NFT market and what direction you think is taking? I don't know. I'm not sure it's gonna stay forever. You know, we're building something that for now we call it NFT market, but I think the NFTs are just the starting point of something that for me is bigger. For me, we are creating the basis of something that gives us an unprecedented freedom or something like that. You know, I think we all realized through the last years that we have some kind of individual power that we can use it for the good or for the bad. We don't need, you know, any bigger structure sometimes, which all of them helps. But if you want to go alone, you can, and that's something that before was impossible, let's say. So I don't know if it's gonna last forever, this market now or whatever. But honestly, I don't care. I mean, I think we are creating a movement, or yeah, a movement. So even if crypto just drop and everyone loses everything or something, it's something that I hope it won't happen. But if it happened, that I mean, we created the structure and the the path to go through. So for me, I always understand the NFT market as, I began my story in art strongly with the NFTs. I wasn't here before, and for me, it was always almost impossible to get here. In the art world, I always imagined that I needed like 20 years to get somewhere to get seen, and I feel the NFTs are like a strong, super powerful river that if you go in, you go super fast, and you have to find different holes on your way, a gallery or a huge exhibition or a great artist to meet or something, and you move super fast there. But that doesn't mean that everything is the river, you just use that river to go faster in your own journey. So I think we are creating this. So I don't know what's next, something different for sure, but we are here and we created a relationship. So I don't know, it's a bright future for sure. Why a book? Also, do you print your works? I'm always interested to see how digital artists bring their work into physical realm. Why a book? You mean why I got inspired by a book? Or I'll start answering the other one and then you can answer this one. I print sometimes my work. Usually, if any collector wants a printed and signed version of the work, I usually do that, but it's not common. I when I work with physical, it's because I'm plotting and I work a lot with the plotter. It's a very different process when you create. In the beginning, I wanted to transpose directly my digital work to a plotter to see, how it will look like. But it's not the same. In my case, I cannot plot my work because it's very, very intensive in lines. So I have to just think differently when it comes to plot something. So the designs are very, very different. And it's something that I'm not sure, but I would say it's something that I like more than the digital when I play with physical works. But it takes more time. It's something that I like, but sometimes I don't have the time. So it takes a lot of time. Then the shipping process, sometimes it's very painful because you cannot control that. So pieces are lost sometimes, pieces are injured sometimes. So it's something that creates a lot of pressure on me. So I think last time I plotted something was in February for that Sotheby's exhibition, and that's the last thing that I did this year because yeah, I just need the time, and we don't have it now. And then the book that yeah, shipping is the worst. Yeah. So you mean why a book? Well, because I have to work on a project now, a big one, and a big in terms of time. I mean, and I need to create a strong collection around. So I had some ideas, but I really needed some bigger inspiration. So I was in London. I had to go alone, so I had like 2 days on a weekend just for myself. And I entered in a bookstore, and I said, okay, I won't go out until I get some special book. So I spent there like 2 hours, and finally I found this book. It's something that I read years ago, but I needed to read it again. And I said, okay, this will be the book. And then I went through the streets to a park, and I started reading the book, and it was, yeah, this is gonna be the piece. So yes, it took me like a few days on rereading the book again, taking notes, drawing some parts of the book, and finally I decided that I would go with this idea. No, I cannot tell now the book. I really want to be something I want to play with, revealing slowly the thing. It's part of the story. So, but I think it will be very soon. So yeah, mystery is the key. Yeah, actually, mystery is one of the main points of the book. So as I mentioned, it's part of the story. Actually, I'm trying to explore. With the collaboration with Zach, there were some people that they didn't agree. It's something that I respect a lot. That it was not a long form itself because it was not just only one algorithm. It was a combination of many, and that's something that we just wanted to explore. I think we are not, restricted by anything. We are here to explore, and this project follows this idea for me. And I'm trying to find if there is a way to tell a generative story. I mean, can you connect different feelings, and that means different algorithms, to grow uh, each one with the other one? I mean, it's not that you progress through a different algorithms, but how can you combine them to create a story? It's not uh, telling a story with an algorithm, but can you create a generative story, something like that? So this is something that I'm exploring. I'm not sure the result, how it will be. If it's not working, I'll just go ahead with one of the algorithms. But yeah, trying to see if there is something in this idea. What would you advise to starting generative artists? Um, well, I don't know. I think what helped me a lot in the beginning, because I remember a few years ago, after quitting the job, I knew that I wanted to go on generative because it felt very natural for me. I mean, it's the same. Like if I was doing data visualization, generative art is the same, but without being restricted by any kind of data. You could just like follow the beauty itself. But I felt like, yeah, I know what it is generative art, but I'm not sure if I really understand that. So what does it mean that I can draw? Because it was not data visualization, but at the same time it was very similar because I used to draw, I don't know, circles, and then it became like 1 million circles, but I didn't draw one per one those circles, but that wasn't generative art, but what it is. So it was confusing for me. So I said, okay, I cannot understand all this without going to the very basic notions of what is this kind of relationship with the computer. So that's why I started reading all these kind of books like Nature of Coding, some physics book, and like the basics of what can we do with all these things and where generative art can help. And I think generative art, it's like the tool to get where we cannot imagine. This is why we are doing this. We can draw something that we imagine, but generative art breaks these kind of conceptions because it generates something from the system itself. So for everyone who wants to start to this, I would just advise, but I don't like to give advices because I don't feel authorized for that. But if I can say something, it's just like go to the basis of everything, go to the basis of how to create a story. I think it's very necessary. I think we see a lot of, there are many projects that goes more into the exploration of the technical skills, which is super fine. But for me, always a story, it's something that it's beyond everything. So learn about how to express better yourself, read a lot of different things, read about not just how to code something on P5, for example, but how the whole language works and what can you do with all these things. Get inspired by art, which is not generative. Go to museums, go to dive on everything that can inspire you, because if not, I think you will be so constrained to a very concrete style, and that's a pity because I think we have to explore many different directions. Have you played with the emerging AI tools? Well, I got access in Midjourney, and I played like everyone there, and it's so funny. I think it's amazing the things that you can create. But it's not my field, and I know that. So it's something that I do for fun. I actually played with neural networks in the beginning, like a few years ago, and I created some things. I think I have 2 or 3 things on object based on these training models. I did that experiment because I wanted to, as I mentioned in the beginning, my whole project is about my own roots and my background or my culture from Bulgaria. So I wanted to train a lot of these kind of geometric shapes from the Slavic countries, let's say. And I didn't find a great database to do that, so I just began training faces from, I don't know, from where was, I think was the Russian database from the 19th century. And I started creating many new faces. And actually I got some very scared one and I put it on sale because it was Halloween or something, and it felt like very proper for that. But that's the only thing that I've done like more seriously. And the new tools that they're emerging, I think they're super interesting. And I'm curious to see what will happen with that. How can we use this? Because the debate is huge now. It's art or not. If you are doing it with an application or if you're training the network. For me, the answer is clear. I think the tool is it's not the important thing. So I don't care if you train the model or just use an app. If you create something beautiful, for me, it's enough. But I don't know. Everyone is, everyone has a different opinion here. So I think the debate itself is something very interesting. But I'm not in this now. Maybe in the future I'll be.
Iskra, just so you
Actually,
know,
if any
we're
one of you wants to say, yes, tell me.
just so you know, sometimes we your voice drops out, so I'm going to tell you to
Ah,
repeat some
okay.
from time to time if that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Let me know if I have to repeat something concrete.
hmm No worries. So far, it's just a couple of words that we missed, and I
Okay.
think it's okay. But I will let you know if
Okay.
something happens. You were going to say something, and I interrupted you. Please continue.
I know I wanted just to invite everyone because I'm telling here my story. But I mean, if you want to say something or create a conversation, please do it. Are you using something else than P5? Now, mostly I'm using P5. Sometimes I work with processing, but it's the same actually. Uh, Sometimes I use D3, but it's something that I'm using it less for last years. I use it a lot in the previous years for data visualization, but I'm so used to it, and sometimes I miss it, and I want to play a bit with it. But I think P5 now it feels like the natural library to use. But at some point, I really would like to go back to visualize something I don't know from the community, or I don't know. I want to build some visualization because this is who I am. But I never find the time again. But but yeah, that's why I would use D3 for example. But yes, P5 is my tool. No, touch designer or frameworks. I never work with them. What artists outside of can inspire you the most? Oh, well, I don't know what to say. For me, I'm very inspired by people from the past. Uh, Now, from the present, I just sometimes, since I am more and more immersed in the artwork, I feel sometimes that I cannot look the work of other people because I'm super easily inspired by people, and I really need to work on my own things. And I honestly I try to avoid to look around a lot. At least now, this is something that just happened from time to time. But I'm so inspired by people from the past. I think me and everyone, even if we don't realize that, we have a strong inspiration from basically last century. And mostly it's something that I tell a lot to people that ask me about, you know, sources of inspiration. For me, it's not that much some about the work of different artists. For me, the very interesting thing is the story of these people. And I read a lot of biographies, for example, and how was the life of this person when he or she created something? What was the trigger to do that? Which were the difficulties of the time that this artist did something? This is something that inspires me a lot more than the work itself. So yeah, more than the work, I got so inspired by biographies, and those biographies don't have to be of artists or painters or something more related to my work. For example, I get so inspired by filmmakers or musicians or composers. And yeah, I read a lot of biographies. That's what inspires me. What would you say is the key for being successful as a digital artist? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Everything changes a lot. For example, for us here in this community, um, it's clear for me that being in the beginning of everything was something key to be seen, in the beginning of the scene. And then for all of us that we were in the beginning, I think it became more easy, let's say, to have a place in the space. But everything changes so fast now, and I'm not sure what does success mean now. I feel, as I mentioned before, we have like a very new kind of freedom to do whatever we want, but at the same time, this lack of barriers means that we have a strong competition around, and that's good. This is like the first recipe for doing great things. If you feel that there is a competition, you try to do the best you can. But at the same time, being successful, I'm not sure if that means to sell a lot or to sell at high prices, or I'm not sure, because I feel if we really follow this pace, this super fast pace now, you cannot stay for a long time here doing this. So I think that becoming a successful artist means to take a lot of care of your work, to not be in a rush, to try to really value your work as you think it is. I mean, if you think your work or some collection or some concrete piece has to be higher in price than others, just put it, because it's your work. You have to value it. You have to create a strong community. You have to be generous. I think this is a key thing in this community. And yeah, just don't be in a rush. Yeah, take care of your work and take care of the people, because you have to be you have to be a good person. So this is for me the key. And also maybe don't follow the trends itself, because sometimes I feel we are creating ourselves trends every 2 weeks, different trends, and we all, I'm including myself in here, we try to follow these trends, and I think this is the opposite of what we have to do. It's not an easy way, because if you are doing something very different, it's very probable that people won't like it, because we are based on a very subjective way to perceive art. But I think at the end, in the long run, this is probably the key. But I don't know. I don't have this answer. What else? Reading, if I miss something.
What are you going to do next? What's your next engagement? What's your next exhibition? And what are you working on right now? Apart from the
Well,
book.
I'm working. Yeah, I'm working on the book. I'm working for a new show in October. I'm working on the Bright Moments project, which is also a huge thing for me. Everything that these guys do is like a huge thing. So for me, it's something that I have to work a lot on. And then where else? Yeah, I'm working now on three exhibitions for the end of the year.
Awesome. How do you find um, like the usual question, work-life balance? Do you because I know that a lot of people from the residency, what we do, and some other artists that I know, we get so involved with our art that we get to miss out on some of the life stuff that happens. Just wanting to stay in the studio and just being so inspired to create more, that we kind of get a little disillusioned from other stuff. Do you think that this is something that happens for you? And if yes, is there something that you can suggest and advise us in that regard?
Yeah, well, my balance life work, it doesn't exist for me. It's work work, and so any advice that I can do, it's just don't follow that. I think, yeah, well, for me, for the good or for the bad, I think for the good in my case, because I'm like that, always the work has been a very important part of myself. Even when I was working at a bank, I was doing a very personal project there, and for me, it was my life. I was super in the project because they didn't feel like work for me. So that I think this is not good, maybe, but this is how I work, and now that I completely do what I want to do. I don't have anyone asking me for do something, or I just do what I want to do. And this is super appealing. And I work at home. I have my studio at home. I share my work with my partner, so we both work the same thing. We go dinner and we talk about the project, and we usually go with a notebook and a pen. So I think I don't have this kind of balance. So but I'm happy. It's not that it's something hard for me to deal with because I need more time for myself. I just have it, but everything in me is super connected to these things because my questions, my conversations with my friends, with my family, I usually try to find answers through art. So I just cannot separate these things. And sometimes maybe it will be better for me to just go to sleep without the computer, maybe, or wake up and just have my coffee without, seeing the works. But I literally wake up and start running the system because I really want to see something new. So yeah, I don't have this balance. I don't follow this advice, please.
There's one there's one more question. When are you visiting Valencia?
Well, I don't know. I think for this year, it's quite full of trips. I'm going to London on Tuesday to see the Unit exhibition. Then we stay for a while at home, and then we are preparing us for Mexico. And I'm not sure if I have the time. I would love to, but I don't know if you organize something. Please let me know. I'll try to do it. I
Okay,
miss a lot the sea. I grew up in the sea, and Madrid is nice, but we don't have sea. So if you invite me for a few days, I'll go.
absolutely. I would love to finally get a chance to meet on Proof of People. We didn't we kind of missed each other, but
Yeah, we
it's
missed.
but that just means that next time.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity. Where are you based?
I am in Sofia, basically. So
Ah, okay.
Victor Duvau is the one who asked about the question about Valencia, and I'm thinking that it's probably because he is in the vicinity.
Yeah, yeah. I was telling him to invite me, but if we are in Sofia, that is great. That I'm sure I'll go at the end of the year. So maybe we can meet there.
Absolutely, and you should probably also meet. We should also get Brutalisti with us, who are currently listening, and they are
Okay.
residents from the residency cohort right now, which is pretty cool. And we can organize a meet, and everyone is invited, by the way, to this. Sofia and Bulgaria are usually very cheap destinations, so you shouldn't worry about it. Also, there are some really, really great grants opening up right now. So there will be a lot of options for us to create real life exhibitions and other projects. Yeah,
Wow, that would
exciting
be
times.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah, Bulgaria is cheap, but it's super fun. So taking in consideration, really, I think it would be amazing. I never did anything there, and it would be so special. So yes,
Absolutely. Well, Victor is writing something. We're just going to wait for him to type it out. And so he says long
long
form.
form.
Yeah.
Yeah, versus what I want.
Hmm.
Well, as I said before, I like both. I think both are. different in terms of the approach you want to take from a piece. For me, the one of ones, well, yeah, I think I have an opinion, yeah, but I prefer one of ones. For me, you can take more time on working deeply on a piece. For example, I love to release collections of 5 to 10 pieces because they are connected somehow. They are not necessarily from the same algorithm. They are something that just want to create this whole story. And you can play. I kind of edit some pieces. I play with contrast or something because I really want to express something. When you go to the long form pieces, there is another um, work and purpose there. You have to create this consistency. You have to play with editions. We have to create a story around that. To well, we all know the work around the long form. But in my case, when I play with these very thin lines, and it's something that I love to do, it's super complicated because as I mentioned before, different computers render very different the outputs. And if you play with a width less than one, you cannot, the pixel density, you cannot adapt it to every computer. It's like a nightmare. So I don't know. If I find a way to do it in a different way, maybe I would uh, go more with long forms. But to achieve the proper result that I wanna achieve, it's complicated sometimes. So yeah, I think there are very different approaches, and sometimes, for example, in Habitable, the project that I have in FX Hash, it felt immediately it had to be a long form because it was about cities and being no one in the city, and you can find very similar outputs because cities are similar, and you have to have like a lot of outputs to feel this kind of loneliness that I wanted to express. And with one piece, it was not possible for me to express that. But then, for example, that last collection, Symptoms of Life, it was clear for me that there would be like a few one of ones. So I don't know. It depends on the story.
Fabulous. Well, guys, we're right on the dot. Um, if anyone has any other questions for Iskra, where would be a good what would be a good way for us to reach you?
I think Twitter. I'm quite active there. DMs maybe if you have any question. I I don't really use Discord. I I miss a lot of things there because I don't know how to use it. So if you want to reach me, I think Twitter is best for me. I have a certain age, so Discord is very no, modern for me. Twitter is better.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're just waiting for Ella to finish typing what she's saying, just so that we know to interrupt her. There he is. And
There you
what
are.
sh-
Thank you, guys.
absolutely what she says. Thank you so much for sharing the time and for sharing this Friday with us. Can't wait to see what you do next. We're super anticipating that book that you're working on. Good luck on working on that, and I hope that it's an amazing journey, um, as well as inspiration. And
Thank you very much.
thanks to everyone for showing up on this Friday AMA. And as I always say, keep creating wherever you are, morning, evening, night. Lots of hugs, and see you soon.
Hugs. Bye. Bye to everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys.